it is Christmas week. Welcome to Look Back, where we take a look at reviews that we've done a year, 5 years, and 10 years ago and tell you what we think of them today. So we'll go back a year ago in 2015. And first we have Stinky Business. This is a game about getting rid of trash. I like the theme of this. You know, do you recycle it? How do you get rid of the trash? You know, getting rid of some trash is better than others. Some cool ideas, but ultimately the game kind of spirals into just not very much fun. There's just not a lot of really solid, good choices in it at all. Flock. Wow, this game looks beautiful. It's a look at that cover. It's amazing. And unfortunately, the game is just merely okay at best. It's an area control game where your stuff, once you take a spot, goes away, but it feels kind of samey, just really not that good. Wonky. This is a stacking game of blocks where the blocks are shaped in kind of off-centered ways. They have, slanted edges. They're not exact cubes. And that's the whole shtick of the game. You're going to like it or not. Guess what? This is kind of like a kid's version or a easier version of the very, very popular Codenames. And that's fine for what it is. Not everyone needs to be playing Codenames, which can be very brain-burning at times. And kids and other folks might enjoy this. It's not the exact same as Codenames, but you're trying to get people to pick something from each column with a one-word clue. It has a lot of similarities. This is kind of a cool game in theory. It's a game where you're using dominoes. It's a cooperative game where you need to knock them all down. A really cool concept. It's fun to play once or twice probably. And then it's maybe forgettable, but the concept is worth it alone. Trexo, this is a typical get some money in a row using some really nice domino style pieces with X's and O's. So every time you're putting a piece out, you're helping yourself and your opponent. Solid in this entry. CV, this is a game about having an amazing life, and you do so by getting different parts of your life and rolling dice. A very good, solid combination. I enjoy the artwork. It's almost Mad Magazine style, and it's fun to get different dice and be able to roll dice more. It's a cool, neat game. Runebound 3rd edition. This one, Sam and I looked at it. You see it's gone down slightly, not a big deal. It's a little long, I think, with more than 3 players. And the chip flipping mechanism, which I think is a pretty solid mechanism, is good, but I'm not sure that I like that more than dice. I don't know. You can't use a dice tower on them for sure. Still a really cool game. And I do like the chip thing a lot. Ascension Dreamscape. This one has gone up in my estimation. I'm really enjoying Ascension. It's an interesting game. It gets more interesting. And the Dreamscape added this dream with an extra currency. My only annoyance about Dreamscape is we won't see more Dreamscape cards. I really wish they would take some of the concepts that they have in these sets and run with them, but they never do. And El Grande Big Box version. El Grande is an amazing area control game. It all comes here with its expansions. They could have updated the art. They could have updated a lot of things, but it is what it is. But it's still, the game still is just amazing. If you've never played it, you need to. Then 5 years ago, we're going to start with Urban Sprawl, which is just a huge disappointment. I didn't like this game when it came out. And the more city building games that come out, the worse this one seems. It's big, it's grandiose, it's about building a city. But the buildings are really no different than each other. When you put a schoolhouse out, it doesn't do anything. And it has this hammer you over the head catch-up mechanism. High hopes for this one. And then with the release of Suburbia and other games, no, there's no need to play it. Ninja, Legend of the Scorpion Clan, another game that I had high hopes for. One person's a ninja sneaking into a base. I have no idea where I'm going, though, and I hope I randomly find the right spot, and the other person's trying to capture him. Really cool, nice components, but basically not a very interesting game, and too much randomness in it for me. Outpost. This was a reprint from Stronghold of a game where you're building kind of an engine and getting different things that give you more money, that get you other things that get you more money. It's a cool concept, but it has a huge runaway leader problem. After a certain amount of time, you're like, oh yeah, you're going to win. And that kind of knocked it down some points for me. Spiel. This is okay. It's almost a good game. It comes with a ton of dice that make a pyramid. I like that. There's just not a lot of really meaningful choices in the game. Nippon Rails. I like the Cran Rails series. This is one of them where you're drawing on the map your rail routes and then moving a train and taking goods back and forth. The problem with Nippon Rails is the map itself. Japan is just too skinny of a country for this to be. I felt too constricted in it compared to other countries. Mondo, this one has dropped for me. This is another one of those, hey, there's a timer, and in this timer, you're building something. In this case, you're building a planet. But, you know, as more of these games come out where you lay down tiles and build things, this one, I didn't like the timer. I found it kind of at best, and so at worst at this point in time. Venture Forth. Venture Forth is a adventure-style game that was kind of unique as you go around and get cards. It's kind of like a Euro game that then had a D&D theme slapped on it. This was one of the better offerings of early Minion games, and it's forgettable. That's its biggest problem. It's kind of unique but forgettable. Lemonade Stand. This is a game about selling lemonade. It's kind of vicious and cutthroat in a sense. It's from Mayday Games at their early stage, and you're putting out different prices and trying to undercut the other players. It's fun. It's cute. It's light. It's a filler. Kingdom of Solomon. This is a bigger game. This is probably the best game that Minion Games was putting out back then. And this one here, as you're just controlling different areas and building different things, it's a very solid game. I still haven't played the little expansion for it. Ascending Empires. Now, this game is a game that was the hotness when it came out. And now you probably haven't even heard of it, most of you. But Ascending Empires was a flicking empire building game. Now that you think is, well, why is this not higher? I mean, Tom gave it a 7, but I mean, why is it not like a 10? You love flicking games. I do. You love flicking games that do things different. I do. But in this one, I liked it. It just didn't grab me as much. There's all this cool technology and stuff, but when it comes down to it, if you're really good at flicking, you'll do better than someone who's not. And I know it seems odd, but it misses that wah factor that some of the other games have. It's cool. There was also some production issues with it. Slapshot. This game looks silly, and it is. It's basically a glorified war, and it might be a smidge too long, but I'll tell you what, it's a funny war. It's pretty cool. This game has lasted for many, many years from Columbia Games. It's just a silly back and forth hockey game type thing. There's tournaments for it. It's entertaining and fun, so I have to give it a shout out. Dominion Hinterlands. This is one of the lesser known expansions for Dominion. This was kind of on the tail end of the we're finished with Dominion, even though they really weren't finished with Dominion, and they're still going to produce expansions forever and ever. So the stuff here was interesting. A lot of the Hinterland stuff, I was like, ooh, that's really cool. And then I find myself not using it that much, thus the kind of medium rating as opposed to some of the other expansions, which are 9s and 10s. Castle Panic Wizard's Tower. This is the first expansion for Castle Panic. I thought Castle Panic was a good, if somewhat easy, cooperative game. Wizard's Tower definitely changed that and made this a much better game. So I just really thought that was a good addition. Core Worlds. This one has gone up and down. I believe my first rating of Core Worlds, I can't remember, was like a 7.5. And then when we came out with the expansion, I put it up to 8.5. Now it's back down to 8. It's a really good deck building game. It's way too long with 4 more players, and the expansion is like essential. Not that you need the expansion to have fun, but once you play with the expansion, you're like, why would I ever go back? I still think it's best with 2 or 3 players. Really neat concept though, great artwork. Core Worlds. And Battlecon War for Indines. This one, just as soon as I played it, I liked it, but it got better and better. A fighting game, a 2-player fighting game where it feels like each fighter is extremely different from each other. There's a lot of, thought, double thought. You really kind of got to get into the game to play it well. And then they came out with several expansions. Battlecon War of Devastation, or Devastation of Indines, sorry, that's what it's called. There's just a ton of stuff out for this game, but at its heart, it's actually a pretty small game. So those are the games from 5 years ago, now to 10 years ago. Desert Bazaar. Now, I remember when this one came out, I was excited because Mattel was making like Euro games. The problem was this one was dry. No pun intended, but it just felt like putting this stuff out. It just wasn't really that fun of a game. Courtyard. This is from Blue Panther. Blue Panther makes some of the Dice Towers. They do a great job at Dice Towers. Their games, they were trying to make some winning games. They had never had any great success. This one's nice. It looks cool and everything. I think better production might have brought up its value. Number Chase. This is a logic game for kids with numbers. You're trying to guess a number, and then someone will ask a question. You'll turn a card over and say, is the number even? Is it whatever? And kids are eliminating the numbers, so it's good. It's a good teaching tool. Justinian. This one's dropped down a bit. This is such a unique game, right? It's about the Byzantine Empire, and you have all these different people who are in the empire, and you are moving them and sliding them around. So it's like area control, but the areas are sliding around the board. It's a cool concept. The game is not as gripping as the concept is. It's actually a cooler idea. than it plays out in theory, but it's still a good game. Mimic, this is a small game where you're placing out animals into like an imaginary grid and using different ways. It doesn't look that good, but it's actually a pretty interesting game as you try to play the cards in the right spots. Heartender Grenz. You might not have heard of this game, but this is the precursor to Sheriff of Nottingham. I love this game about crossing the border and trying to persuade the customs officer that the goods that you have in your suitcases, they had really cool metal suitcase. It was really overproduced, but it was really cool. I love the idea of the game, and I always had hoped there would be a reprint, so eventually I made one. Great game, though. Ticket to Ride USA 1910. When I first played this, I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. The cards got bigger. Ticket to Ride, bigger cards, that's nice. And more tickets, but the more I play with it, this is absolutely essential to Ticket to Ride. This is a great expansion. It works really well with the whole setup and everything. Definitely, if you own Ticket to Ride, you need to get Ticket to Ride USA 1910. The ticket spread is just much better. Just fantastic. So, those are reviews from 1, 5, and 10 years ago. There's a lot of great stuff coming out from the Dice Tower this week. Check it out. Have a Merry Christmas if you don't watch any of our other videos. Until next time, I'm Tom Vasel, and this has been Look Back on the Dice Tower.